A couple of weeks ago, I was on LinkedIn and I saw the CEO of Arav Unmanned Vehicles. Check them out. They've gotten a lot of funding and they're doing really good work in the drone sector, but they're doing more on the mapping, like drones that go around and they do geospatial mapping and stuff like that, I think for mines and for government applications. Anyway, he posted about how the government had just set out an SOP for drones to spray farms. Think about it, it's a very, very simple concept. You have a drone that's flying over your farm and that is just spraying all your crops. I mean, from all the applications all the fancy mancy applications that we thought about of drones, this is the most basic one. And the reason why it's super useful is because farming is such a labor intensive job in India. And if you can at least get some of it put onto a more capital intensive model with using drones, that's going to be less people that you have to employ. Right, so I did a bit more research on this and I saw these drones for crop spraying are already there in the market. They're selling from anywhere from 5 lakhs to like 35 lakhs on the higher end, depending on the size of the drone. Obviously that depends on like how big your farmland is and all that stuff, right? And also DJI, I don't know if you guys know DJI. DJI is the largest drone manufacturer in the world. It's a Chinese company. They are also selling these agri spraying drones. So that got me to thinking, what are the Indian companies that are doing this, right? So I'm sure there are a lot. In fact, I found quite a few on IndiaMart as well, but I don't think that most of these are manufacturers. I think a lot of these people are just importing from China and they're just like assembling it in India or something like that, because most of them seem like very small outfits, not that great quality. But I could find 3 that I'm pretty sure are manufacturers. The 3 that I could find was one called Thanos, one called Avian Aerospace, and another one called Aerial D Robotics. Okay, first of all, Aerial D Robotics was formed in August of 2021. So it's barely like 6 months old, right? The other 2 were formed in like 2016, 2017. So even they are quite young and they're not doing that much revenue. Thanos is the biggest of these 3 and they were doing about 53 lakhs in FY20. By now, maybe they've doubled, maybe they've tripled. But again, the point I'm trying to make here is that this is a market that is so new, it is so nascent that you can still get into this market. By the way, before I go into the actual opportunities that I see in this market, Thanos is also doing licensing for drone pilots. It's only a 5-day course and I was like, oh, you know what? I would love to get this done because we had spoken about in our last episode about drones, about how like drone licensing is going to become a big thing. And I was like, oh, let me go to wherever their campus is and get my drone license. And then I realized it's 65,000 rupees for a 5-day course to get a drone license. But the point, again, I'm trying to make here is that drone licensing is going to be a legitimate business.
And a lucrative business.
And lucrative as well, yeah. It's already started and it is going to become much, much, much bigger as the drone market in India itself explodes.
Now, before you go there, spraying is obviously one of the most obvious use cases, but I've seen this, I've read this. I don't know how popular this is or where the technology is, but you can use drones to check the soil quality and the soil health also. Like what kind of crops should you grow, what kind of minerals it has and stuff like that. I don't know how popular that is in India. Did you find anything on that?
Yeah, dude. So that is one of the biggest applications of drones in agriculture actually. And in fact, I had somebody come to me in like 2019 asking for investment in their company that was doing exactly this, right? So they would just fly the drone over a certain area and they would be able to use like some kind like hyperspectral imaging to see the health of the crop, right? So for example, they were speaking about like a 1,000-acre farm where they would just fly the drone over the entire farm and seeing like in different wavelengths of light, they were able to tell the health of the crop. I mean, all that kind of fancy stuff. I didn't end up investing. I really regret it now. But yeah, hyperspectral imaging is a big thing in this as well.
See, one of the only problems in India is the land holding is so small that a lot of these services or drones actually don't make sense from a capital perspective. So I'm assuming you have some ideas to like make that work, because the average holding is like 0.84 hectares or something like that in India.
Yeah, I think it's barely over an acre, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so that's actually one of my first ideas is that why don't you buy the drones and then you can lease them out, right? Or you don't even have to lease them out. You can do a service to the farmer that like, hey, I will just come to your village and I will spray it for you. Or you could, for example, go to the panchayat and say like, hey, I will do it for your entire village, like all the farms in your village. So it doesn't have to be just one farmer who's leasing out your drones on that one particular
You can
day.
use rural influencers basically.
You can use rural influencers. Dude, rural influencers is such a great
Next
topic.
time.
I'm so excited to talk about it next time. But yeah, and by the way, panchayats are a great rural influencer, but unfortunately they're not digital. So number one is that like you buy the drones and then you lease them out, or you do service contracts for large farms, or you do service contracts for an entire village or something like that, right? The second thing is actually get into the manufacturing of these drones for the spraying, because from the research that I was able to do, there are a few manufacturers already in India, but this is such a nascent market that you can get into it still right now. And you can also do the manufacturing of the parts of the drones, right? Because they need all these different plastic casings, they need all these metal parts, they need a lot of electronic components. So there's no reason why you can't do the components and sell to multiple manufacturers. And last idea that I had was about the financing of these drones. So like you said, most of these farmers can't afford these capital intensive drones, because like I said, each drone is going to be 5 lakhs to 35 lakhs. Why don't you do the financing of it? Like if you have the capital, why don't you do the financing? You help them buy it, because traditional financiers, traditional bankers might not understand these new technologies. So you can help with the financing of this. The other idea,
out of all the ideas that you said, financing is probably the worst, because you never know which government comes into power or promises to the farmers that all your loans are going to be cancelled. You don't have to pay the loans anymore, and you're the one who's given them the drones. But financing in farming is a risky bet, but I guess for drones it could be different because it's asset backed.
Because of that, the last idea that I have is basically, why don't you crowd fund these drones and then lease them out? Okay, because recently I heard an episode on the podcast Paisa Vaisa. I forgot the name of the
Grip
business,
Invest.
But Grip Invest. Thank you so much. They basically crowd fund assets and then they lease them out to businesses. So you can crowd fund the money to buy these assets, and then you can lease them out to farms or farming industries.
So your solution to that farming finance thing was, don't take the risk yourself, just like give the risk to other people. Yeah,
exactly. That is my idea. I mean, it's a high beta investment, right? So you better be up for some risk.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's asset backed also, right? So in an ideal case, if somebody is not paying back the loan, you get the drone back, and these drones, I'm assuming, have a decent lifespan. So it's asset backed, so there's some safety there.